Hello guys, what is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome back to the Popcorn Podcast. Welcome, of course, if you are new. I hope you're all doing fantastic. I'm not really going to waste too much time on this intro. I'm assuming you already know what this video is going to be. It is my monthly wrap-up for August. I'm going to be talking a little bit about everything that I managed to check out. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump on straight into the video. So as you guys can see, I've logged 22 entries for the month of August. Still nowhere near as high as I would have liked it to be, but you know what? Still managed to check out some pretty interesting films. The majority of them were new watches, so there wasn't an awful amount of rewatches for me this month. But yeah, on the 3rd of August, which was the first film I watched in the month, was Jungle Cruise. And during this point, I was actually on holiday in Greece. So I managed to check this film out on Disney Plus over there. And I think it's fine. I think it's a fine adventure flick. I only gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars because I didn't think it really brought anything that new to this sort of genre or anything we hadn't really seen before. I found myself sort of comparing this to Pirates of the Caribbean 4 quite a lot. I think a lot of the storylines and whatnot sort of are reminiscent of that film, and that film really isn't amazing by any means. But yeah, I just thought this film was sort of the kids-friendly version of that Pirates film, you know? I think Emily Blunt is pretty good in it, and sort of she was the driving force of the film. The Rock is always pretty entertaining to watch. There's sort of this plot twist that happens midway through the film that I didn't really see coming, but in terms of what it really brought to the story, I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of this film, but I think it's fine. Anyways, on the 4th and 5th, I watched or rewatched Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And I'm perfectly fine with Jurassic World. I think it's a pretty entertaining watch. It's pretty dumb, but it doesn't sort of tarnish my love for the first film, Jurassic Park, which is arguably my favorite film of all time. It's the film that's, to put it simply, got me into movies. And when I was on holiday watching these films, I was actually on holiday with my younger cousins who are kids, and their favorite film is Jurassic World. So I was sort of arguing with them about why Jurassic Park is better in every single way. And things got a little heated, to say the least. But yeah, no, I think Jurassic World is fine. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, on the other hand, I have a lot of issues with. And I would probably say that it's the weakest in the entire franchise. I'm really not a fan of this film. I'm still looking forward to Jurassic World Dominion, which is supposed to be coming out next year, because the OG cast is returning: Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum. So of course I will be still, checking that film out. But this sequel, Fallen Kingdom, I'm not a fan of this. Anyways, on the 6th, I watched The Founder, which is the real-life story upon which the boom of McDonald's was based. And I didn't know any of this going in. I didn't know the history of the company, but I think this is a pretty fascinating story about how, McDonald's essentially became the largest fast food chain in the world. And it's pretty good. I think it's a pretty easy film to consume, much like McDonald's is for fast food, no pun intended. God, I gotta do better than that. But yeah, I didn't give this film any higher than a 7 out of 10 just because I found myself comparing it a lot to The Social Network, which is of course one of my favorite films of all time. I think the two share a lot of the same themes, and a lot of the stories have a lot of similar sort of parallels to each other, and I think The Social Network does basically everything so much better than this film. But nevertheless, I think The Founder was a pretty decent watch. And yeah, 3.5 out of 5 stars. On the 7th, I watched Diary of a Wimpy Kid for the first time, which is pretty random. I wouldn't have watched it if I wasn't on holiday with my younger cousins, but you know, I think it's fine. I think I sort of just missed out on this film when growing up, because it was sort of the generation just below me that sort of was all on the hype of this film, and the books I'm pretty sure as well. Yeah, not really much to say about this film. I think it's okay. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, 2.5 out of 5 stars for me. Anyways, on the 8th, I rewatched The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, the Chronicles of Narnia film, and this was one of my you know what? It was actually one of my favorite films growing up. I don't think the film is perfect, but you know, I do still really love a lot of the scenes and a lot of the moments that this film showcases, particularly the great battle at the end. That sequence is always a standout whenever I see it. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard somewhere that they're rebooting this franchise, I think, into a series or, you know, a new line of films. But yeah, I really do enjoy this first Narnia film. And yeah, anyways, well, moving on the 8th, again, I watched The Karate Kid, the most recent version with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan. I'm a huge fan of the original Karate Kid, and I can still enjoy this one. I do really like a lot of the changes and the sort of updates of this film. It's something's that's always bugged me, is the fact that Jaden Smith actually learns kung fu in this film, but the film is titled The Karate Kid because, of course, you know, that name is more marketable. But anyways, yeah, I do like The Karate Kid. I won't lie. I think Jackie Chan is really great. There's a scene with him where I think when I was younger, I cried the first time I saw it. So there are some really good emotional moments of depth in the film, and of course all the kung fu stuff is pretty cool as well. It made me feel like I could take on the world when I was younger. But anyways, speaking of taking on the world, on the 9th I watched Into the Wild for the first time, and of course this is another true story, and I thought this film was terrific. I think it's a really sort of realistic take on what it is like to sort of just leave your life behind and go out into the world with very little, just in pursuit of everything, really. And when I say I think it's a realistic depiction, I have no idea what that feels like, but what I do think the film made me feel was a sense of authenticity. And it's directed by Sean Penn, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I think what he does from a directing standpoint is terrific. And yeah, I do really recommend Into the Wild if you haven't seen it. I think it's really great. Anyways, on the 10th I watched Event Horizon. So this film is actually pretty there's a sort of little funny story about this. One of my friends, he loves this film. He said it's one of the scariest films he watched growing up as a kid, and he's been trying to get me to watch this film for years at this point. Another one of my friends, on the other hand, he has watched it, and he said that this film was just a pile of shit, essentially. So I had both of these friends beside me as I watched this film for the first time, and I actually, no, you know what? I actually did have a lot of fun with this film. It didn't, you know, scare me that much. Maybe that's because I'm older, and one of my friends who said he really loves this film watched it as a kid, but the horror elements of it, didn't really work for me. I thought the concept behind this was very promising. Of course, if you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm of course referring to, but I just think the way the film pans out is very, very predictable, and Alien, of course, has done it much, much better. And I think that is always and will always be, that is of course and will always be, the gold standard. But I think towards the end this film got a bit cartoonish, and I struggled to sort of take it seriously. But anyways, on the 11th I watched Shadow, directed by Zhang Yimou. And I thought this film, I won't lie, I think I sort of struggled to get into the story. I don't think it's as strong as some of Zhang Yimou's previous films, but that might have been something to do with the fact that I was very tired when watching this film, so I will definitely give it a rewatch. But tired or not, this film is one of the most visually stunning films I've seen in quite some time. It is very visually dynamic. It's got a very unique color palette that I really recommend if you are into, you know, stylish films. If you're into stylish films. And of course it does have some great action sequences in its runtime as well, so yeah. Anyways, on the 12th I rewatched Don't Breathe, which is a film that I wouldn't even say it's a guilty pleasure, because I don't think it's that bad. I think it's actually a pretty solid one location horror. The first time I watched this film was in a cinema, and it was genuinely one of the most intense experiences I've had in a cinema. I think the premise behind it is really clever. You know, these kids who sort of try and rob an old blind man, and what they don't know is he is essentially a psychopath. He's basically Daredevil, the Daredevil all grown up, and yeah, this film always. I'm always sort of impressed whenever I watch this film, just because I think when compared to a lot of other films in this genre, there's a lot of standout aspects to it, like the fact that the characters are actually smart and they aren't, you know, these dumbass people who just make stupid decisions. And whenever that happens in horror films, it's very difficult to, you know, side with them. But this one, I think this is a really effective film. And if you haven't seen Don't Breathe, please do watch it with the lights off. And yeah, let me know what you think if you do. Anyways, on the 12th, later on that night, I rewatched G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra. I don't know why I said I didn't rewatch that many films this month. I did actually rewatch quite a few. Anyways, G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra. I don't really know what to say about this film. It's really dumb, it's really stupid. It's pretty entertaining, but yeah, I mean, it's a G.I. Joe film. What are you guys expecting? G.I. Joe Retaliation on the 13th. Same applies to it, but with a different cast. I think all the ninja stuff is pretty cool with Snake Eyes. He's always sort of been my favourite character with both of these films. And of course, these films I was rewatching in preparation for watching Snake Eyes, which is the new film coming up. Or when I say coming up, I mean coming up within the watches. But anyways, on the 14th, rewatched Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad, I should say, again, in the cinema. You guys know my thoughts on the film. I've made a video on it. I'll link it down below. I think it's terrific. It's probably my favorite. It might be my favorite superhero film of this year so far. I have just seen Shang-Chi as well. So I don't know. I'll have to see Shang-Chi again to decide. But anyways, on the 15th, I watched Amelie, which is of course the iconic French film. And visually, this film is just incredible. It's one of the best foreign language films I've seen. This time watching though, I didn't feel as much of a connection to it as I did the first time I watched it, which is why I only gave it 4 out of 5 stars. But still, I think if you are sort of looking to get into foreign cinema, Amelie is a staple. But yeah, anyways, on the 18th, I watched Till Death, which is another one location sort of thriller starring Megan Fox, who, by the way, in this film, she surprised me quite a bit because she's actually very good in this film. I think this is the first time I can actually say Megan Fox actually did a pretty great job, so good for her. I think the film is fine, but I only give it 3 out of 5 stars because I do think it's a little forgettable. At the time when I was watching it, I thought, you know what, this is actually pretty good, but then a couple of days later I thought it would sort of went in my head one day and then sort of went out my head in the another day. So yeah, it's a little forgettable, but I think it's still pretty good. Anyways, on the 20th, I watched The Green Knight, which is A24's latest film starring Dev Patel. This is a sort of fantasy horror, I would say. And don't go into this film expecting a lot of action or action sequences or anything like that. It is a very, how do I say? It's a very ambiguous film in a lot of the things it's trying to do. It's visually one of the best films of the year. And I am planning to make a video on this at some point within the next couple of weeks, so I can give you sort of more of my thoughts on what the film really, or what I think the film is trying to say and what it means. But yeah, The Green Knight, it's an art house film, so don't go expecting, you know, these great battles or anything like that. So yeah, on the 26th, it's a huge jump between the 20th and 26th. On the 26th, I watched Reminiscence, which is the latest film by Warner Brothers, latest film by director Lisa Joy, who, by the way, is married to Jonathan Nolan. So she is actually Christopher Nolan's sister-in-law. And she's, of course, one of the co-creators of Westworld, which I haven't seen yet. But of course, I've heard nothing but good things about that. So I was actually pretty excited to check out Reminiscence. You know, it's got Hugh Jackman, Rebecca Ferguson, solid cast, and the trailer looked pretty interesting. But unfortunately, the trailer was better than the film, because I just think there's a lot of problems with Reminiscence, and I just feel like when the credits rolled, I just wasn't satisfied with what I watched. I was struggling to find exactly why I wasn't satisfied, but I just think that even though there are quite a few twists here and there, it just feels like so many other films that, you know, we've all seen before. So yeah, this was a bit disappointing for me. But anyways, on the 27th, I watched Snake Eyes, the G.I. Joe Origins film starring Henry Golding. Yeah, I thought this could have been better than the first two G.I. Joe films, but unfortunately it just wasn't, because some of the story beats are actually pretty promising, but just the way the direction is handled with regards to this film, I think the fight sequences should have been some of the best fight sequences of the whole year. But the way they're shot is so incoherent, and I really struggled to tell what the hell was going on. The film is very cheesy, but cheesy in a bad way, not cheesy in a good way. And yeah, I thought it was a bit of a mess by the time I started typing and writing my sort of mini review on Letterboxd here. So yeah, that was a big disappointment. 29th, I watched The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf, which is an anime prequel to the Witcher series. I'm a big fan of The Witcher. I do like the show a lot, the live action show, and of course I'm a big fan of the games as well. I'm very much looking forward to season 2 dropping later this year, but I thought The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf was really, I had a lot of fun with it. I mean, to take, you know, the world of The Witcher and to apply to turn it into an anime film, it was something I was really excited to see the moment it was announced, and I thought it was really good. Like, I really had a lot of fun with it. But of course, what this film does is actually showcase the potential for anime takes on well-known fantasy series, or just well-known series really, and I think it's a great example of an anime adaptation done right. And I hope they make more of these films, or make a series, because I will be there, and I will be watching. So yeah, The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. But anyways, on the 30th, I rewatched Predestination. This I actually showed to a friend. If you haven't seen Predestination, please go and see it, because it is, firstly, it's so overlooked. I don't hear anyone talking about this film, and when you watch this film, you'll just be blown away by the way the story pans out. The beginning is a little slow, so just stick with it. But by the time the credits roll, you'll be just astonished as to what you watched. And yeah, this is the second time I'm watching this film, so I very much had the experience of, I knew what was going to happen, so I was sort of looking for all the clues and the sort of story beats leading up to that, and it's almost given me a little bit of a different experience to the first time I watched it. But yes, very much recommend Predestination. 4.5 out of 5 stars for this. And yeah, but anyways, the last film I watched in August was The Night House, starring Rebecca Hall. This is a new horror film that came out recently that I managed to check out in the cinema, and I thought this film was terrific. I think it's one of the best horror films I've seen in the past couple of years. I think Rebecca Hall is fantastic in the film. I think the film is shot beautifully, and there's a real sense of atmospheric tension. There is quite a couple of jump scares, but the way they are done is very effective. Like, for example, I almost got whiplash from these jump scares. But it's not just jump scares. There are some truly frightening elements to this film, especially as we go into the third act, which admittedly, the ending I'm a little conflicted on, but nevertheless, I think what the director here, I completely forgot his name, but he's the director of The Ritual, which is another horror film but I wasn't the biggest fan of. I think what he does here is just take it a step up, and I think The Night House is a really solid solid horror flick, and I do very much recommend this. But yeah, that was the last watch I managed to check out in August. Guys, let me know if you have seen or managed to check out any of the same films, or just let me know what you also watched in August as well. Some of your, the highlights, and some of the not so highlights, and yeah, just let me know your thoughts on any of these films. I'd love to discuss. And guys, thank you for watching the video. Of course, if you did enjoy it, feel free to leave a like, and of course, if you are new, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We are always talking movies over here, and I've got some pretty exciting videos planned for the coming weeks. So yeah, once again guys, thank you so much for checking out the video, and I'll catch you very soon in the next.